Okay.
All right, everyone, it's Dr. Dan Ritchie again. Functional Aging Summit 2021, the 7th annual. It's Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock Eastern time. Figure out what time that is wherever you are. And if you're watching on the recording, awesome. Um, big honor to introduce Rachel Prairie. We have met through Anytime Fitness over the last several years, and she actually was at the Albuquerque Functional Aging Summit event, and I think she had so much fun. She was like, hey, I'd love to speak for you guys, and we were like, well, we would love to have you do that. And she's actually developing the first ever Functional Aging Institute Kettlebells course, and we're really excited about that. And so, with no big shock, she's teaching on kettlebells today. If you don't know who Rachel Prairie is, she is the trainer of trainers, probably the biggest trainer of trainers, since Anytime Fitness is the largest fitness organization in the world with the most trainers in the world, and she is the educator of those trainers. She's right up there with the trainer of trainers. So you definitely want to listen to Rachel. She's developed a number of programs for the Anytime Fitness world, as well as many others. And she's got such a long list of certifications. I'm not going to go through all of those, but I'll hand it over to you, Rachel. Looks like we got about 25 people live in the room. I do think she's going to want some of you to turn your cameras on at some point, because I have a feeling the trainer of trainers is going to want to see you move. So just, you've been fairly warned. So Robert is ready. He's got his kettlebells ready. I can tell he's warmed up. So I'm not sure how he is in two places at once, because he said earlier on Facebook he was in Tahoe. So I don't know. So all right, Rachel, we'll take it away. You have an hour and 15 minutes if you need all that. So
Time.
thanks for
Okay.
doing this.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Dan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I know we're day 2. We're coming rolling up to the end of the day, and we are going to go through some how to get your clients to move better with using a specific tool, the kettlebell, which is actually we're going to make some assumptions along the way on things that you've already checked off the box to make sure your client is ready to use this tool. They have full range of motion, no pain, all those things. But if you don't know me, I know Dan just teed me up. I got a whole bunch of certifications. I'm with Anytime Fitness Corporate. I also, for my entire career, I just can't let go of my own business. And I have a fitness business that is kind of more recently evolved into heart-centered coaching, where I do lots of wellness retreats and really heavy on the education, as opposed to having clients in the gym. And I just finished the Oxygen Advantage instructor training, which was really cool and a little out there if you ever get that. And I got certified in Reiki level 2, and I've been practicing on animals. I volunteer at a local horse sanctuary here to help horses learn how to be more calm so they can become more adaptable. They're the sweetest. I love them. So we are going to hop into this today. And I did want to share, so I know I know I'm an online learner too, and I like having my camera off and just having my dog on my lap and eating hella snacks. So if that is you, that is okay. But towards the end, we're going to learn and practice some movement and technical skills. So if you have a kettlebell nearby, grab that, but not necessary. And if you do, when we get there, flip your camera on. So if you have questions about positioning, form, technique, I can get my eyes on you and help support you, help walk you through that. I am in an Anytime today. I'm in Utah and Hurricane. They were nice enough to just let me crash here. And so I didn't close the space off. So if you hear or see people come through, I told them that was cool. That was our negotiation. I could use their big, beautiful turf, and their members could move about freely. Okay, so I'm a functional aging specialist. I came across functional aging, I think 5 years ago, maybe almost 6, because a lot of our Anytime Fitness clubs run that play within their facilities. And this is also my parents too. And so I got really curious right away. I was always the trainer that training an athlete is fun and all, but they can pretty much do anything you throw at them. But some of my favorite clients have been my active agers because it requires you to actually level up as a trainer and a coach. So when we are looking at kettlebells today, we're just going to focus on this 4, 3, 2, 1, a little bit of the more fully fit hierarchy in the movement, just because so many things have to fall in place to use a kettlebell with the lower functioning population. So I just want to make sure that when you're thinking about your clients, like who would be good to introduce kettlebells to, think more of your fully fit, active, independent clients. Okay, and this is one of my favorite slides that Dan ever showed me one time because it talks about the mature market and what they actually want, which is really no different than what our normal average consumer wants, right? Like they're looking for health, their longevity, they want to have full, rich life experiences. They want to be able to get in and out of their car safely, carry groceries up the stairs, have sex. Like they want everything that our usual consumer does. But like I said, a lot of times they just require a little bit extra attention and a little bit extra work to get them there. And then once I'm telling you, these are going to be, if you don't have, I'm sure you all do, but these mature clients are like the best. They're my favorite. They're committed. They have time. They're excited to be there. Sometimes they get fussy, but they're excited. So why kettlebells specifically? This is a short list. I got introduced to kettlebells, oh my gosh, maybe 10, 12 years ago. And I pretty much fell in love because if someone said to me, all right, you're going to open a gym today, you can choose one piece of equipment, and that's it, I would choose kettlebells. You can do strength, you can do cardio, they're ballistic, you can use power, you can take them anywhere, right? If you can train people up on them, they can use them at home, outside, at the beach. Like there's endless amounts of things that you can do with them. And when it comes to our mature market, our active agers, it's so good for so many things that they're looking for. So improved posture, heart health, bone density, improving balance is such a big one because of how the kettlebell loads the body and how you move through your space. It actually can help their body connect the dots and be better at balance, preventing falls, and having those toes and their full foot on the ground to get better footing. And circulation, mental health, they're fun too. They're fun. I always think back to Lorraine, one of my favorite clients, Lorraine. And she told me one day, I think she was 62 when I met her, and I trained her for about 5 years. And she said one day, she was like, you know what? I love kettlebells. And I was like, why, Lorraine? She goes, they make me feel like a badass. And I was like, perfect. That's why we're here. We want you to feel strong and confident and have fun and improve your physicality along the way. Lorraine, she used to bring me buttons all the time. I don't know why, but I still have them. I still kept them. So this is, if you are a functional aging specialist, this looks familiar to you. And what I love is that without even trying, kettlebells fall into each of these buckets. They really hit them all. They help with mobility, speed, endurance, coordination. A lot of kettlebells is practicing and it's coordination. So I love how it fits into each of these functions. Here's where we're going to start assuming some things before we touch a kettlebell. I'm going to assume that before your clients touch a bell, they've gone through an assessment, even daily check-ins. How are you feeling, right? Because maybe you planned like this kind of power day and they didn't sleep well. They didn't get breakfast. So really too checking in on how they are when they arrive. So I'm going to make assumptions that you know your clients, right? Before we just throw this tool at them. And then this is one of my all-time favorite things, and I actually use this in these principles. I sprinkle them into our programming at Anytime Fitness because it is active aging specific, but let's be real. I know a lot of people my age, I'm 39 and younger, south of 40, that can't get in and out of a chair efficiently and properly, right? So it's really, these principles can apply to all of our people. So making sure that we prioritize and train all components of function, which a kettlebell can do, making really purposeful decisions, training all three planes with your kettlebell is super fun. It's easy. It adds some variety too, right? Some isolation exercises, check that box off for kettlebells. I want to show you a few of those today. Seated when it serves a purpose, but there are opportunities. I can show you today too if you're interested in things like we're going to do a two-handed clean, right? Because it's being able to pick something safely up from the ground to chest or shoulder level is really important, right? How often do we do that day to day? And then making sure our energy, where we place them within the workout is really important. You don't want people gassed and then try to teach them something or vice versa. And then making sure everybody is safe and ready to take on these explosive movements. And remember, explosive is relative, explosive to our active aging clients. So looking at some movement patterns, this is it. We're not super fancy. Our bodies squat, they hinge, they single leg or lunge. We push, we pull, and we use our core or we carry. So today, because I really want to focus, like I said, I've taught full days of just kettlebells, so I had to choose. And I thought, all right, if I wanted to just introduce some people to this, we're going to work on hinge exercises today, and then look at some different ways to carry it, because carries are, if they're not in your programs, they should be. It's such an easy, effective way to make sure our clients are strengthening their cores, but not maxing them out, especially on their joints. Right? Okay. Again, here are the assumptions I've made up until this point. You have done an assessment with your client. You've had a good warm up. You have checked in with them how they're feeling that day to know if you're going to include, introduce, and practice these movements. This is the time to put down your snacks. If you want, if you have a kettlebell, you can grab it and turn on your, Robert's literally eating snacks. If you have a kettlebell, grab it and turn on your camera. So everyone's eating snacks, you guys. It's lunchtime. And we are going to go through some basic patterns and a little bit on how to regress them, but not too far, because these basics are going to be really, really important before you try to move people around. So what we're going to do is work on these and then talk about how can we take that same movement pattern and just tweak it just a little bit without going full bore into like overhead snatch. All right, so I'm gonna just wait, hang on 1 second. I need to grab my other notes, because otherwise I will ramble. Hang on. I'm gonna stop share for 2 seconds, pull up my notes. Okay. All right. Okay. We might have a brief gym tour coming through. If anyone is interested, you can listen in. Okay. So I think I'm going to do is actually stop screen share anyway for a minute. And if you want, for your view, you can, if you haven't already, you can like blow up my space so you can see better as we break down these different, and I actually think I'm going to do that too, so I can make sure I can get my whole body in the frame. I know I do need to do this. I practiced all my things. Okay, so we are going to start, and sometimes my head will be cut off, but that's fine. You just need to see the hinging part. We are going to start talking about the hinge, the tip over, the deadlift position, a quick cues and tips on stance. And what I always try to do with active agers too is be consistent with my cueing. And sometimes you need to find the right cue that works for the person. I've had things where like I've been trying to do something for years and all of a sudden somebody says it a different way and it clicks. So you also might have to consider going through kind of having a library of cues that you use and try and practice until you find the right one that works. So when we look at a stance to start up before we go into goat belly, which is one of my favorite hinging movements for active agers, is I always tell them, let's find your stance, because everybody's hinge is going to look a little bit different. Everyone's stance is going to look a little bit different. So an easy cue for them, especially, oh my gosh, in the last year when we had to switch to virtual, we had to get really good at cueing, right? Because we couldn't actually like puppet people into position. So I tell people to their stance should be about the width. If you put your, we call it moose antlers, right? Put your thumbs together. I'm going to bring this down one more little thing. Put your thumbs together. And right in between your knees, your patellas, that's about the sweet spot for the hinge. And eventually, if your clients graduate to a swing too, that's about the right stance too. And it's a way, again, when they're not with you, to put that into some muscle memory to make sure that they're being consistent with their setup. And then toes straight ahead, or sometimes slightly out is okay. And then I also use the wall a lot to talk about, it's a tip over, it's like that little tipping bird. It's not a squat. So even thumbs here, flat back, and I want you to push your hips back and touch the wall behind you. That's a really good way to start them out. And oops, I just realized I need to grab one more ball. I'll grab it in a minute when we get through to talking about that range of motion. So we're gonna start with your kettlebell and go into goat belly. I'm pretty sure this was originally Dan, is it Dan John, who came up with goat bagger? I don't know why it's called goat belly, but here we are, people. So, and just so you know, everyone's always like, oh my gosh, this is actually a really light kettlebell, but it's a competition bell. And so the bell size stays the same no matter how much they weigh. I actually like using them for active agers because it's consistent. So even if it's a heavier bell, I know it's in a cute, it's pink. If you know it's a heavier bell, it stays the same. So it doesn't throw them off. So here's what you're gonna do for your goat belly. I wanna make sure, like I said, I get all my cues down. The reason I start clients with this even before the deadlift is because of how it loads the body. In general, it should be really low risk and really safe because it doesn't necessarily load the spine. We're gonna put it right here. We're gonna keep it tucked in tight. And it's a way for them to also squeeze and activate their shoulders. So when we do get to that deadlift, they already know, oh, this is what I should be feeling back here because I've done it here, right? Because as soon as I start moving the weight further away from my center of gravity, the less control that I have. So, and the third thing for goat belly is the bracing. Because I think a lot of time, especially with kettlebells, if you think of the top of a kettlebell swing or even the top of the deadlift, tension wise, it's a lot like holding a plank. So it teaches them how to do that here. Even honestly, I've had people I grab here, shoulder blades back, squeeze, create tension, and just hold for 10 seconds as hard as they can, and then relax, and then hold and relax. Which also, we talk about breathing then too, because a lot of times when people think tension or create tension, they just hold their breath. So it's really about how can we create tension, get people into the right hinging position, make sure they're still breathing, use that as our foundation, and then transfer it into deadlift, and then transfer it into the swing. So that's why I just love the goat belly. So here's what it looks like. I'm gonna tip my camera down, one more little tip here. We've got that moose antler stance, right? Toes forward, or again, toes a little bit out. I'm not really picky on toes a lot of the times. I know some trainers are, but if I haven't done enough assessment knowing why you're standing the way you are, I'm gonna leave you alone for a minute just to see how this goes. So we're going about, I have to keep coming up, we're going about sternum, bottom of sternum, grabbing the sides, and I also think about you're trying to pull the handles apart so you're creating a whole bunch of tension, taking a big belly breath. If you can go a little bit heavier in this, that's great. Squeezing shoulder blades together, and then you'll more or less unlock your knees and go into your hinge. So it'll look like this. I'm here, braced, and I'm gonna hinge, tip back as far as I can, and then come forward. And I would say too, this allows clients to get a lot more range of motion than they might with a swing too. So it's really a big hamstring stretch. I hate using that word, but hamstring stretch, extension really would maybe be the better word. So you're gonna push back, and then once they have this motion down for a few, have them start thinking about slow, like a little bit slower on the eccentric and quick explosive on the way up, because when they graduate to swings, that's going to be really important to understand that tempo switch that happens. So they push, hinge, back, and then explode up. And at the top of this position, also if I came around and I karate chopped you in your quads, your hams, your glutes, your abs, your back, everything would be really tight if I came by and gave you a chop in all these positions. And think about breathing in as they push back and out at the top. So keep, it's a good foundation. Shoot, I forgot what I was just gonna say, because I get chit-chatting away. I'll come back to it. Oh, I did want to mention one quick thing too. Oh yeah, good, we have a couple people trying it, is about shoes with our kettlebells. A lot of people like to take off their shoes. It definitely gives them more sensory through their feet, but just remember, it also probably is going to take them a lot of people a long time to get their shoes on and off. So whether you have them take their shoes off for the whole session or use it at the end, just be mindful of that. That's going to take up some of your time, but it does give them some really good feedback, making sure they have all 3 points of contact on the ground. They're drilling their big toe, because as soon as we start to add ballistics to this, the toes tend to pick up and they have to stay in touch with the ground. Mary, that looks good. Nice. Okay. All right. So here we go again, assuming some things about your clients. Let's say they have the goat belly looks great. They'll be able to create tension, still breathe through the movement, feet are on the ground, everything feels good. Then we can move into the deadlift. So I like to start people by limiting their range of motion. And so I use these little steps, depending. Oh, I should mention too, I put this here so I wouldn't forget. You can goat belly with a med ball too. They can hold it just like this and do the same motion. So if that feels more comfortable, they can practice that with the med ball too. Okay, so we have these little steps. And you can stack them all sorts of different height. But this is another way to introduce the hinge safely, especially if we should know at this point our client's range of motion, or I remind my trainers too, if they can give us a good hinge to here and then their backgrounds, and you cue them and you try and you practice, it's not working, that's fine. Then just let them hinge to here, because with good practice programming and as they get stronger, that should improve. So I think sometimes trainers, we get so particular, like if they can't do it with full range of motion, then regress it down to a bridge or something else, which you might have to do. But don't underestimate, just work with the range of motion that they come to you with. That's okay, it'll get better. So I use a little step, which is about, again, that moose antler length here, starting over the top, and then going back to that goat belly cueing. So I'm going to push my hips back. I've created tension everywhere first. I push my hips back, grab handle, and come through, and just to the box, and back up. And as that improves, I'm sure I'll be, I don't need to go through too much of the deadlift basic, but as that improves, you can take the boxes away, because the start of the swing, ideally, we could start it from here for sure. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. We could start the swing here and go, but they're going to have enough range of motion at some point when they take it to the ground to be here. And that's a lot lower than this starting point. So just making sure you're setting them up from the start to move safely as we progress this move. Okay, so again, we're assuming goat belly looks good, deadlift to the ground, no pain, all the things. And I'm gonna break down the swing. And this is probably, it's one of my favorite movements for both strength and cardio. Like I said, it's ballistic, it's power, which our clients definitely need, right? I had all these light bulbs go off when I went through my functional aging certification. It's like, you know these things, but then somebody says it and you're like, oh, duh. Dr. Diane actually was my instructor, and she said, you know, it's not just strength that gets a client in and out of a chair, it's strength plus power. So they have to be able to use power to get up and out of a chair, which is why we love using the kettlebell so much. So here we go. We're about to go into the swing. We'll probably spend the most time here because I do want to go through cleans, but only for the intention of doing exercises in a racked position, which can be really tricky for this population. So I wanted to show you some tricks and different hand positions too, where if it's bothering their wrists, we're not going to be cranking on that. All right, so the swing, here is your setup. You're actually going to start with the kettlebell out in front of you. Again, we're assuming we checked all the boxes, and either can start higher up, okay, or from the ground. I think I'm just going to scoot this out of the way so I don't have to worry about it. But the start is going to be, let's see, maybe I should do side, like I think I'm going to do like a 45-degree angle. I think that's how you can see best. It's going to start out in front of you. You'll actually have them squat down. So they're going to squat down, grab the handle, tip it back, come at about 45 degrees. And again, remember back to goat belly where we talked about cranking like they're trying to break that handle in half. Same thing happens here. So if I'm just chilling here, let me move my hair so you can see this better. If I'm here, I'm loose, but before I start, I actually want to do this. So I'm going to break this handle apart. I'm trying to like overemphasize, break this handle apart before I hike. So now I'm fired here. I'm sitting down into my lats. I'm not just loose here, because that's when we start to see kind of this bad, like hinge front raise thing that can happen with swings. So we're out in front, not too far, squat down, 45 degrees, rip that handle apart, and then it's a hike like a football. So you're going to bring it back and then come up to a stand. I'm gonna just sit this down for a minute. I'm gonna do it without the bell so I can talk and not be out of breath for like 20 minutes. So when you bring the bell back behind the body, we're back into that nice hinge position, but your client only has to go back as far as they can. So the more power I put behind this thing, the further it flies up. So that means if you have a client who has a good hinge, but maybe they don't have the power yet, it might look like this. Like I just call it like a baby swing. It's just more like this. It doesn't have to be this all the way up here. It can literally stay here, and this is still going to help them. Okay, so the bell is only going to go as far as I have the power to set my hips and pop them through hard and fast. And speed can feel a little scary sometimes to active agers because it might feel a little out of control, right? The more we pick up speed, the scarier it might feel. So let them work their way into that and push speed when they're ready and when they feel comfortable, whether they're starting from the ground or from the box. I needed to grab a med ball. Hang on one sec. Okay. A little form check cue you can use too is you'll notice when I swing, I keep it up as far as I can into my hips. I'm not way down here. There's no reason for that. And I'm really, there's different types of kettlebell swings, right? There's more of a RKC style, which is really super, super strict and very competition driven. I would say what we're talking about here is more athletic general conditioning, right? So what we use is keeping it higher up in the hips because it helps people work on form without hurting their back. But a good tip that I use, especially because if you see people start swinging too low, is grab a med ball and put it in between their feet. It'll start the hike a little bit different, but that's okay. And if they go too low, and you can certainly start your swing from this push position too, if you just go here. But if they get too low, they'll hit the ball. So it's kind of like a little form check to help them know not to go too low. They really need to focus on loading their booty and their hamstrings. All right, upswing. Oh yeah, one more little point here. The downswing is actually just as important as the upswing. I think a lot of times people get to that top position and then they just kind of do whatever on the way down. It really should be an active descent. Think about you're up here and then you're trying to get the bell back down in between your hips quick. So making sure you keep that tension, because otherwise it could get a little sloppy or risky for injury because you have this great tension at the top and then just kind of like slop it to the bottom. You've probably seen that before where it just falls where it falls. So it really is an active descent and then an athletic move down back between your hips as well. Okay, all right. Okay. Like I'm talking so fast, I'm just so excited. I haven't gotten to talk to anyone about kettlebells in like a year. All right, so we got the goat belly, we got hinges. We know we can't progress onto the swing unless those two are in line. I want to talk about the clean for a minute because I have some different ways for you to have your clients practice a clean without, I'm sure if you've done cleans before, especially with the kettlebell, you know, we see this a lot where it kind of like comes over, kind of smashes. Even this position too, this racked position can be hard on wrists. So we're gonna cheat for a minute and talk about this racked position. A lot of people think, or I see grip at the top that's straight on. And this is actually really difficult and hard on the wrists. So a better solution would be, we call it bone stacking. So you're gonna take the handle and you'll rest it between your thumb and stack it right on this bone here. And the kettlebell is actually gonna be at an angle. So see, it's like, I'm not straight on, I'm in the pocket. I'm in the corner of the handle. And this is pretty comfortable just because I have it stacked across my thumb and really connected to that bone in my hand. You want your wrist in a straight line. So we call it, like if you were gonna punch someone, not like I've ever punched someone, but if you were gonna punch someone, you wouldn't be like, yeah, you'd have a straight fist, straight line. You should be able to give your fingers a little wiggle. The other thing is like a death grip on this bell. And if you're trying to clean with it, that's gonna be really hard. Rip up your hands. So gentle, just fingers resting. You're stacked across at an angle. And then the rack position is tucked in close. So I tell people I shouldn't be able to really see your palm and your thumb should be about at your sternum and I'm tucked in here. Like I was called like carry the baby pose. Like I could just chill here all day because now I'm stacked on my hip and just chilling, right? So you're tucked in close, you're at an angle, everything's in a line. And even though if you keep holding this for a while, which is, this is a great core move, by the way, just this hold, it should be relatively comfortable on the wrists, okay? like I said, we're gonna keep cheating for a minute. So this would be like the top of the clean, and then we'll get to the bottom. Another easy solution is to do a waiter's hold. So you're just gonna flip it around, and it's in this racked position. It's, you know, you could do a single arm squat from here, but you just have it at an angle, and you have the bell here. And this is, again, this should be relatively comfortable. There should be no wrist issue here. And then the last one, actually, wait, is this the one the waiters hold? Anyway, these are all the waiters hold. You're actually gonna have them bring their hand through and just rest the bell here. And then I always tell them, just in case, right? Because now this is real risky, just in case, just to rest this hand here for a little support. So this is another way. Now we have loaded one side of the body, and we're in a good position to do farmer's carry, or honestly, I don't know if I would do it with, depending on the client, but you could certainly go overhead from here. So there are a lot of options to at least get the kettlebell into different positioning too, because that's what's really nice about it. It's versatile. So you should be able to just take the same movement pattern, but slightly tweak where you load the body, and suddenly the body's like, oh, what's this new thing, right? Okay, so that would be what the top of the clean is gonna look like. So now we gotta talk about how do we get it there safely, and how do we practice? So I'm gonna start, and I know this is kind of like a close-up, but it's the two-handed clean. So here's what it looks like. You have your bell, so I'm gonna kind of like chop my head here. You have your bell, and then you'll put, so I'm gonna rack it on my right, so then I'm gonna put my left hand just under my right. So my handle is facing out, so it's gonna look like this, but I'm straight down. And the clean position really is, let's say we have the hinge and then we go. At this point, if my hips are extended, it should be a pull back and down, and then poke my hand through. So away, and it doesn't have to be even fast with this either. It's gonna go hang, pull back and down, and into that racked position. So just slow-mo, remember gentle, loose grip, because we want it to be able to pivot around, but it's a pull back and down. So pull back, come around, and right into that snug, close, racked position. Where kettlebells can go wrong is the further we get this thing out away from the body, the more dangerous it gets, the more risky it gets, right? So we got the hands, pull back, down, come around. Okay, and that's one that they can just practice. Then they can add just that little hinge, just a little hinge. It doesn't have to be this full clean from the ground, but a little bit of a tip over. I'm gonna back up a little bit. A little side, give my right arm a break. So my handle's forward, and it's just a little bit of a hinge, maybe about knee level, maybe right below knee. So I'm gonna tip as I stand, I come across, and I get it into that rack position. So a little hinge and up. And the better that they get at the positioning, the faster that they can pick up speed. Nice, yeah, looks good. It takes a little, especially if you have done regular kettlebell cleans, to regress it down. I feel like I'm like, am I doing this? This feels kind of funky, but it's a good way for people to learn safely. And we can do the same thing. I debated on whether or not I wanted to show this because I don't know. I love the half kneel position, but again, for active agers, I always go back and forth, like half kneel and a tall kneeling position is so good for them, but I never want them to get into a half kneel and like not be able to get off the ground or like be uncomfortable. So again, check the box before you get there to put them in a half kneel position. Or a trick that I used to use all the time is just keep a bench nearby. So if they're in half kneel and they just need a quick little bench support to get off the ground, it's there. So you can do the same thing from a half kneel. I'm going to put my camera way down here. So I'm in that half kneel position. Maybe side view would be best for this one. In that half kneel position, my handle's forward, my left hand grabs it, my right arm supports, and I'm already in a hinge right now just by grabbing this handle. So that's perfect amount of hinging for this position. And as I push my hip through, I bring it around. So all they're going to do is their hip will naturally push back because they're going to have to hinge over to grab the handle. And as they push that booty through, they're going to rotate it around up to the shoulder. So this is another good one too. And again, they can keep picking up speed from here. So it's just that natural, I have to hinge, push my butt through, bring it up to my shoulder. Nice. Woo, I'm starting to sweat, people. Okay. All right, we got a little clean. And again, too, if once your clients advance, then you can take, I call it a training wheel. They can take that hand off, and it's the same motion for them, where they have their thumbs forward, more of a neutral, or thumbs back is a little more advanced, because now I've put you into rotation, and in order to get it up, you're gonna have to come out of rotation. So I would say either thumbs up because you're already there, no big deal, you'll just go from here to the shoulder, or at the the next step would be just neutral with a little rotation to the shoulder. So if someone is power level ready to go, again, you could limit motion, do a hang, do a power clean, but they're gonna hinge and then bring it to the shoulder. And from here, if they're advanced enough, that's why this racked position is so important, because now from here, we can go anywhere. We can lunge, we can press, we can figure eight. So a lot of times, just coaching this rack, we can even, like I said, just do that hold for 30 seconds, creating tension. That's one that I ended up incorporated a lot when we had to switch to virtual last year, because people didn't have room to farmers carry. So we did a whole lot of holds, and surprisingly, we got a lot of sore abs from it. So I was like, all right, we're on to something here. Okay. And then carries. Speaking of carries, this will be our last little technical piece here. So when it comes to core, carries are, I feel like, one of the best, most effective things that we can do with our active agers, because one, if we go back to that list of why kettlebells are beneficial, posture, right? Teaching you to lock your shoulders down, keeping your core braced, having tension. Hip strength is really important too. Even the ability, so, if somebody is carrying a grocery bag and they have to walk like this, as opposed to if we've taught them how to use their core properly and they can do it like this, they're in a lot better, safer position, right? Foot, I would say foot strength and stability too. This is another one where you certainly could kick off shoes, but just remember the process of getting the shoes on and off. That's why I usually end with carries. And if they do want to take their shoes off, I let them. And depending on what kind of shoes that they wear during the day, it could backfire on you too, right? Taking off shoes could really light up some feet that are usually not lit up and cause pains. We got to be careful there. But the best thing about carries is they don't take a whole lot of skill or technique. This is something that you can do with your clients, right? Even though I know it sounds crazy, but like none of us are great, probably have great gaits just because of all the, damage we've done to our bodies over the year, right? Or any surgeries. If you fell when you were 6, you probably have some kind of thing still going on, right? But just picking up a weight and going and not overthinking it too much. So thinking about some cues on here is, let me grab maybe 2 kettlebells. Let's see, 10, 15, okay. So a basic carry would just be using two. You're gonna see how bad my gait is too. It's not fair. I have a joint disease, okay, people? So you're gonna see me walk so weird. But now I'm gonna like try to fix it. Here's what we want. We want shoulders. So I'm already like, and again, a lot of us, active aging or not, are kind of like in this rounded position all the time. That's where we're all hanging out now because of all the devices that we're on. So step one is rolling shoulders down and back. And really I call it this like packing your lat, like sitting down into this back muscle to help them know that that lat is there. It takes up a whole lot of surface area. And a lot of times people get up in their traps or they're just using the wrong muscles for the type of movement that we want them to do in the gym and outside. So I tell them, pack your lats. I'll even like give them a little touch response too. I'll be like, I'm gonna tap your lat. And this is where I want you to feel that you're loading. So rolling shoulders back and down, sitting into those lats, okay? This is another good one too for grip strength. So be mindful of that. If you know grip strength is low, they're probably gonna have to do lighter, or consider how thick of the handle is of the thing that you want them to carry too. That can be the other issue, is that the handle is just too wide. So it's, I tell them, I think I know this means when I say it, but I'm like, right, what we're trying to do is take out any swagger in your walk. So like if your normal walk is just like you're always on a runway, I don't want to see that here. I want this to be an athletic, deliberate, step-by-step, a very heel to toe action, which again, even unloaded, if we ask them to walk more or less more functional, that might just be the challenge all on its own without weight. So back and down, I'm up straight. I'm also looking ahead because sometimes people want to look down at the ground. We're going to look ahead, spine's in a great alignment and placement, and just a heel to toe motion. It doesn't have to be fast. And what they're trying to do too is, like I said, no swagger, and really making sure that these aren't bobbling around, because we'll want to swing arms. They're going to hold still and heel to toe their motion. And just a double carry is a great place to start, because as soon as you want to load one side of the body, then it's going to require the body to know, okay, there's a weight on this side. And so I have to activate here, pack that lat, and move. So single-sided carry, double, again, if they can get into that racked position, that is great. You can do eventually, like this, now this is about to be really advanced, but you can do, I'm carrying a high, low, I'm carrying overhead and low, just overhead. This is also a place too where we could do this carry instead, or this one, just so to protect their wrists. If you want to get real fancy, they can do, they can hold here and do a carry, I would say lighter, and also they need to have a hand ready so they don't hit their cheeks, all right? So they can go here or even up overhead. I'm not that fancy today. So there's 101 different ways to do loaded carries. Just make sure that you're setting them up to be in a really stable position, because as they're walking, their brain is remembering that movement. So then when they go to carry those groceries, that's functional training, right? Like that's what they're going to use. So I'm really particular about carries to not have any step where I'm not heavily coaching it. Okay. All right. Wait, I'm so sorry. I haven't even asked. Are there any questions yet? I'm sorry. I'm just like plowing through kettlebells. Anyone have any questions after our goat belly, hinge, swing, cleans, and carries? Good. Okay. Everyone's still eating their snacks. All right. Let me go back to sharing for a minute. And also, did I hit all my, yes, okay. All right. So with the assumption, again, checking off all of our boxes. Oops. Thinking about how can we take our basic movements and not go crazy with progressions, but just little tweaks, which is usually with kettlebells positioning. You certainly could go heavier, but I would make sure that technique is there first. Changing it, tempo would be a really, really good one here. So again, remember if we talked about like they're just doing that baby swing and they're just working on their hinge, it's not super fast or ballistic. An easy progression would just be pick up speed. So don't go, like I said, don't go super crazy until you know like this looks good. I've seen it. It's for a month looking like perfect before we move on. And then making sure, sorry, I put that 90% rule in there because that's my, that's the rule that I use with my clients. If it is 90% looking good, then I add that little tweak without going too far. So it might be a rule that might help you, like, and also I've gotten a little more relaxed in my trainer years of this idea of the perfect swing, the perfect squat, because there really isn't a perfect, it's just perfect for that person. So at some point, I am going to move them on because it's not going to be like this textbook thing of these dream athletes. It's going to be, what can Mary give me that is Mary's best for Mary? Okay. I did have in here, oh, I think I had one slide that I wanted to pop out really quick. And exit. I'm putting it together. Yes. Here we go. Okay. So your program might look, took it out of this mode for a minute. That's okay. Something like this. So we make sure that we have our warm-up, and that's also where we check in with our clients to see how they're feeling that day, right? And making sure, this was such a lesson for me to learn, but one of my first years as a trainer, I had a client who had a series of strokes. And so it was always actually really difficult to like make sure that she was cognitive and ready. And but I made it this habit of always checking in with clients, at everybody. I don't care how old you are, everyone, because if I had a super, high intensity workout for the day planned and somebody comes in and like they're late for work, their kid is sick, they didn't sleep and they didn't have breakfast, I'm going to pivot, right? Because they're going to perform differently. And I checked in with her and it turned out she was acting so strange and she had a stroke right before she came to the gym. So, and then we took her right to the ER. So making sure that you check in with your clients, see how they feel, what's going on, a good warm up, and then keeping the programming really simple. And you see I've sprinkled in kettlebells here. I very rarely, unless it's a little bit higher level client, do an all kettlebell workout. At the very least, kettlebells and body weight, because it is such a challenging tool to use and you have to have your technique down. And then a finisher. This is one of my favorite things. I don't remember his name. The session earlier with the Olympic Games was my favorite so far today. But I always sprinkle in, especially with my small groups and teams, a little team builder that can be really fun, even if it's I go, you go swings, you know what I mean? So like this side of the room, these 3 people are going to do 3 swings. And then the other side of the room is going to do 3 swings. And we just go back and forth just for some community, right? Because it's so important to our active agers. And then a little mobility work at the end, whether it's stretching, foam rolling, and even talking about what can we do for recovery when we're not together, drinking water, eating protein, going on a walk, having belly laughs with our friends. There's a lot of different ways to incorporate recovery into their programs too. Okay, I feel like I talked so fast. I didn't go too crazy. Let's get to this last slide here and open it up for any questions or anyone have exercises too that they wanted to ask about that they're using a kettlebell with and they're not sure, let me know. Otherwise, I encourage you to practice. One of the ways before I introduced these to my clients was actually practicing on myself. And again, deciding the type of cueing that I wanted to use, because there's a lot of options out there. Dan has been so patient with me with my kettlebell certification that is coming soon, which will also include an exercise library. I think I've got about 50 exercises shot that break it down, not so much for a consumer, but for a coach. So how would a coach their client? I have a partnership with Kettlebell Kings. You can always get a discount using my code. And I have 101 sources. Like I have all the nerdy science that you could ever want when it comes to kettlebells. So if you are interested, let me know. I can send you scholarly journals, peer-reviewed studies. Like I love this stuff. And then reach out too, or find me on Instagram, and we can connect and share that way. Any questions? I can stop sharing too. Should I just leave that? I'll stop.
I'll have you share it again at the end.
Okay.
I know people at the recording are always like, wait, how do I, they can always, you can always rewind and go back and see that slide. But Mary's asking, oh boy, you asked it, Mary. Mary's asking, so kettlebell certification by the end of the summer?
Yes, yes. I swear, Dan, he is like the absolute best, because like I was like, yeah, sure, I'll create a kettlebell certification in a pandemic, and then like I just couldn't keep it together, and so I kept being like another month. So by the end of the summer,
yeah, she couldn't keep it together. What that means is she's on all these super cool like women's retreats and wellness retreats and like hiking through Utah, and I'm like, wait a minute, she's never gonna get this kettlebell course done because her life is like a picture book or something, you know. So
I was like, oh, I'm stuck at home. Let me start 10 new businesses because I don't know how to just relax like a normal person.
Yeah, well, you weren't stuck at home for long because pretty soon you were exploring the outdoors all over the place. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was so lucky. I am in Utah. I'm in St. George. If anyone is around the area, I'd love to connect. We can swing kettlebells on top of a mountain and make Dan really jealous.
And I'll know why the course still isn't done.
Sorry, Dan.
Yvonne says, thanks for good information. I appreciate your enthusiasm. Amy asks, what is the best way to incorporate more kettlebell exercises? I just started to add them in, and some are afraid of them. Kettlebells are scary, right? I mean, some of our clients are like, what is this thing?
Yeah, they are super scary. I would say, here's what I do, like trick your clients. So here's what we're gonna do. Instead of doing like really traditional, like a swing, I just started, instead of a dumbbell bent over row, today we're gonna do a kettlebell. And then like, instead of an overhead press, I'm like, today we're gonna use the kettlebell. So like, I kind of just started making like normalizing it, that it's just a tool that's part of our programs. And then really, when I first started introducing it, I actually put on a series of almost like little workshops. So it was a place for them to come, practice, ask questions, get comfortable, and learn as a group. I don't think I even charged for it. And honestly, I didn't intend it to, but it actually turned into a great lever into training, because people came and asked questions about it, and then suddenly they wanted to sign up for training. I was like, oh, okay, well, I thought we were just talking about kettlebells, but this is cool. So a little introduction in person would be great, but really help them understand the why behind it. Like, why are we doing this? How does it connect to your goals and what you want to work on? And a lot of it is too, like, again, that strength, power, and keeping people safe. I had a client, her name was Anne, but we nicknamed her Miss Kitty because she talked about her cat every session. Every session. I love her. But Miss Kitty, but she called the gym one day. I was like, oh my God, no, what happened to Anne? And she said, she was so excited. She said that she misstepped off a curb and she didn't fall. And she attributed it somehow in her mind to kettlebells, right? Because I talk to her all the time, like, hey, this is helping your body understand how to move through space. And I was just like, okay, Anne, like, have a great day. Like, but so it's things like that, helping them connect to their why, because it is a little intimidating.
Somebody asked, and I think Mary posted it already, your Instagram is Coach Rachel Prairie.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And I have some, it's kind of like a more of a personal account, but I do a lot of kettlebells. I'm in this really great, one of my first certifications was through Kettlebell Kings. I think technically it's livingfit.edu or something that runs the cert, but I'm in a kind of like a mastermind kettlebell group on there too. And we post and share a lot of kettlebell content. You should see these kids, like I'm old. You should see these kids in there. They're juggling and doing all this fun stuff that I'm like, oh my God.
Oh boy.
Who are these people?
Shelly Turk said, thanks so much for the regressions on the clean. That'll be super helpful with clients. I always just avoided it in the past.
I know.
Or I would help them get in the position. So,
Mm-hmm.
Marcia, can you speak a little bit about the risks and benefits to the different carry positions, the low, the shoulder, the overhead, and any cueing in a group setting?
Yeah, so I would say start with a lighter double carry, because again, that's probably the most, even though you're loading both sides, it's probably the most stable position you could put them in, because as soon as you load it on one side or rack it on one side, now we've created just a little bit of instability. So a carry where, again, I always think about like those old timey like posture, like you have a book on your head and you're balancing it as you walk. So that's why it goes stand up tall. Imagine you have a book on your head that you don't want to fall off. Look straight ahead, roll back and down into those lat muscles, and walk. I tell people, like, walk with purpose. So again, taking out kind of any of those, I mean, they don't need to know what they really are, which is like a faulty movement pattern, right? So removing those and trying to walk in a straight line, which again can actually be really difficult, just unloaded. A straight line, a kind of heel to toe motion. And then I would say too, have them either set them down, or what is tricky for a lot of people is the turnaround, because they actually get a little dizzy sometimes. So instead of like a tight turnaround, have them like walk in a larger loop, or a figure 8 shape. So they're already kind of looping around on the way back. So it's not kind of this fast spin move under load.
All right. Awesome. I don't see any more questions. Look, we're eager to get this kettlebell course out. We have had FAI trainers asking for a kettlebell course for at least 3 years, maybe longer. And Cody and I are like, well, we're going to find somebody that can do that. So yeah, great. I was just going to ask you to put your slide back up. There's the Instagram, there's the contact, email her. Keep in mind, half the time she's lost somewhere in the wilderness in Utah. So, but she does email back. So, so the beauty of the pandemic for people like Rachel is she has realized the freedom of living and working from anywhere. So that is a cool thing. So I wanted to ask, the moose, I never heard the moose antler thing. Is that a Minnesota thing? Because like, I mean, I love moose, but I'm sure some people on this were like, what the heck, a moose antler? Like, is that a Minnesota thing, or where'd you learn that?
I actually learned it actually it was my very first kettlebell cert. It was put on by I competed in kettlebells, and it was put on by my coach. I mean, he became my coach after that. Seacoast Kettlebells, right outside. They're in New Hampshire. It's
okay.
It's the coolest gym. But when he came,
there's moose everywhere up there. So
yeah, actually, We went back and forth on, because someone said moose ears, and I said, what? No, this is an antler.
Yeah, yeah,
I
definitely.
don't know, but it's a good cue to find that distance between.
No, for sure. I was just in the Grand Tetons and I saw a large bull
Oh
moose.
my
And so I was like,
God.
that's like for someone that lives in Indiana, I'd be like, moose antlers. Like, what? I don't, I like the reference. So that I had to ask. So, all right. Well, thanks so much for participating in the summit. And, we look forward to your course. So thanks again, everyone, for being here live. We've got one final session at 4:30. So 4 more sessions to choose from at 4:30. We will see you all there. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.